It was late fall, that point when the Appalachian Trail air turns dry and the trees hang onto their last few leaves. The second I reached the trailhead, that familiar cold air settled in my chest. A sharp sting, but kind of comforting. I adjusted my backpack and started walking at a slow, steady pace. The dry leaves under my boots made this soft, crunching rhythm that somehow made the trail feel even more empty. The sun was low, and when the wind shifted, the edges of the leaves would flash with that mirror-like glare for a second. Birds were calling somewhere far off, but nearby the forest felt oddly still. Not creepy, just quiet. This hike was my routine therapy. Same boots, same jacket, same narrow path curling around the hillside. Nothing out of the ordinary. Everything clean, predictable, unbothered. Exactly how I wanted it to be. I wasn't out here chasing any kind of thrill. No adventure, no challenge. I just needed a break. Lately, my head had felt heavy, like thoughts kept stacking on top of each other until they built pressure. Nothing specific was wrong, but there was always this background noise in my brain. Work, messages, emails, tiny responsibilities, all clutter. Hiking worked like a reset button for me. You put your phone away and just walk. No conversations, no distractions, just trail markers, the rough feel of tree bark, and cold air sliding down the back of your neck. I've been on this trail a dozen times before. I already knew which turns were slick, which branches bent too close to your face, and where the woods opened up a little. That familiarity made it easier to breathe. What I was really looking for was silence, that real kind you never get in the city. No road hum, no sirens, no voices leaking from somewhere else. Just that low, steady white noise of nature. That kind of silence has its own weight. It slows down your overthinking. My plan was simple. Walk a bit, breathe some fresh air, then head back. No expectations. Nothing weird. Just a quiet day that made life feel a little more manageable. Everything started out exactly like it always did. Birds calling in short bursts, squirrels doing their frantic circles around tree trunks, leaves drifting down slow. The air was cold, but the stillness of the forest felt peaceful. Then, a few miles in, I noticed something faint, a sound that didn't fit with the rest. A rhythm that IT was soft, like footsteps, not on the trail, but deeper in, behind the tree line. At first, I figured maybe a branch cracked, or a deer was moving through the brush. Forest sounds can play tricks like that, but this one had timing, structure. When I slowed down, it slowed too. When I climbed an incline and naturally sped up, it matched. Not ahead, not behind, just alongside, keeping pace that I told myself it was nothing. Probably a deer. Appalachian forests are full of them. But deep down, that small alertness kicked in. That weird, primal sense that something's syncing with you. I pushed it out of my head. Coincidence was the easiest answer. Visibility out there isn't great. Thick trees, uneven ground. Sound bounces weird. That's all it was. So I kept walking, same casual pace, pretending it meant nothing. Denial's comfortable like that. You tell yourself there's no reason to worry. Yet. But the rhythm didn't stop. Every bend, every dip, every small rise, it stayed there, keeping the same distance. Like someone was walking a perfect invisible line parallel to me, always hidden behind the trees. The forest around the trail is thick, undergrowth, branches, uneven dirt. If someone was actually walking through that, you'd hear more noise. Crunching brush, snapping twigs, something. But this was measured, controlled, like it was meant to be heard, but not seen. That I stopped. Not dramatically, just to adjust my water bottle. And the second I stopped, so did the footsteps. No lag, no delay, exact same timing. The forest went dead quiet. The birds that had been calling went silent. That thick, unnatural kind of quiet that feels like the woods are holding their breath. Even the wind felt like it froze. That I looked back over my shoulder like any normal hiker would. Just trees, heavy shadows, no movement, no sway in the branches. Still, my body knew before my mind did. Someone was there, watching, just not moving. I took a deep breath, kept my posture relaxed, and started walking again. But now every crunch behind me carried a weight. Coincidence didn't feel like a real explanation anymore. The silence wasn't background noise anymore. It felt like it had closed in around me. A little further ahead, The trail dipped in a natural bend, the hillside rising on my left, and a narrow runoff ditch cutting along the right. I stopped there, pretending to fix my strap, just trying to steady my breathing. The air felt colder, tighter in my lungs. And again, the footsteps stopped, same instant I did. That quiet had a physical feel to it, like pressure. Then, from the right side, just behind the tree line, a voice spoke. Not loud, not shaky, just calm. Hey. Then my name. Perfectly clear. No hesitation. No confusion. Not friendly. Not angry. Just certain. Like whoever it was had been waiting for that exact moment to speak. My body reacted before I could even process it. My hands went cold. Every muscle locked up. My brain didn't say run or scream. It just froze everything. That pure stillness your body defaults to when it knows something's wrong, but doesn't know what yet that I didn't turn around. Didn't speak. Didn't even breathe deep. All I knew was I wasn't alone and hadn't been for a while. That voice, that tone, it erased denial completely. The normal reaction would have been to run, but I didn't. Somehow my brain knew that'd make it worse. So I just turned around slowly, steady, like I was just continuing my hike. No jerks, no panic. My steps were quiet, deliberate, normal speed, normal rhythm. Usually, around that time, the forest has its usual life. Birds shifting on branches, squirrels barking their weird little calls, leaves whispering around your ankles. But not that day. The only sound was my own steps, muted crunches, just enough to remind me I was still moving. The woods around me were dead still, like the whole place was watching. I didn't hear footsteps behind me anymore, but the silence carried its own kind of weight. That pressure that tells you someone hasn't left. They've just stopped moving. That I passed every familiar point on the trail. The open patch, the crooked oak, the narrow dip, but today, the comfort was gone. It all felt wrong, like the map of safety I'd built in my head didn't mean anything now. On the downhill stretch, that hollow feeling hit. Not fear exactly, but emptiness, like something inside was fading out. When the parking lot finally came into view through the trees, I exhaled for the first time in what felt like forever. The car looked like safety, but the silence still clung to me. I didn't look back, not once. Just unlocked the door, got in, started the engine, and that's when I noticed. The whole walk back, I hadn't heard a single sound besides my own footsteps. Just that silence, sitting there, too perfect. When I reached for the car door handle, I froze again. It wasn't even a decision. My body just stopped. The cold metal against my skin brought that unease rushing back. I glanced at the rear bumper and saw fresh muddy fingerprints. Not smudges, clear drag marks, like someone had gripped the edge with both hands and slid their fingers downward. They hadn't been there before. The parking lot was dry. The trail was a good distance away that I didn't double check. Didn't lean closer. Didn't take a picture. I just turned the ignition, skipped adjusting the mirrors, and rolled out slow. The silence followed me. That same unnatural, spotless quiet. Even merging onto the highway, I avoided the rearview mirror. Some instinct said not to look. When I got home, I went through the usual motions. Lights on, shoes off, keys in the bowl. But that hollow feeling didn't fade. I still don't know who that was, or how long they'd been pacing me through the trees. No proof, no face, just that voice, soft, steady, saying my name. And sometimes, late at night, when the house gets too quiet, when even the hum in the hallway fades out, I swear I hear it again. Those same footsteps, same rhythm, same distance. Like whoever was in those woods never really left. They just learned where I live. It was late November, that time of year when the temperature at night is basically freezing and a thin layer of snow powder sits on the roads. I stopped at a small roadside motel in Vermont, just for the night, just a simple stopover. There was no movement in the parking lot, just two cars parked in the far corner, and the overhead lights caught the slow drift of snowflakes. The room was surprisingly clean. The bedding was warm, the heater in the corner was humming on low, that steady background noise that feels comforting after a long drive. Thin frost patterns had formed on the windows, like someone had drawn soft white lines across the glass. The air was a little dry, but still comfortable. The motel's overall vibe felt normal. No strange smell, no weird noises, no creepy feeling. Just a basic room where I wanted to crash so I could leave early in the morning. Nothing special, just a routine overnight stop. This trip honestly didn't have any emotional weight behind it. No heartbreak backstory, no stressed out meltdown, no running away from life moment. It was just a long drive home after a family event. The highway stretch was dragging on. The rhythm of the headlights was making my eyes heavy, and my body felt that familiar road fatigue you get during late night drives. I wasn't in any particular mood. No deep thoughts, no spiral. Just a simple get home by morning plan where one overnight stop made sense. Roadside motels are common in that part of Vermont, and I didn't need anything fancy. Just a quiet room, a warm blanket, and that low heater hum that makes a space feel soft and safe. Weirdly, the silence didn't bother me at all. Sometimes lonely little spots in unknown towns can feel eerie, but that night I was genuinely relaxed. It felt like one night of sleep would be enough to reset my energy. The motel's stillness actually felt soothing. No loud guests, no doors slamming, no footsteps in the hallway. Just that soft ambient quiet that makes your body automatically slow down. When I walked into the room, I hung my jacket on the hanger, slid my shoes into the corner, and sat on the edge of the bed for a moment just to feel the heater's warmth. No bad gut feeling, no weird tension. Nothing hinting that the night was going to be anything but normal. It felt like a regular stopover, and I expected the morning to be just as routine. Around 1 a.m., I was half asleep, in that drifting state where you're not fully out, but not really awake either. The room was warm, the heater was making that slow pulsing sound, and the snow outside made the whole motel feel muffled and wrapped up. Right in the middle of that, there was a knock on the door. Just one. A soft, controlled tap. The kind of knock that doesn't feel urgent or aggressive or desperate. More like someone casually checking if the room is occupied or not. At first, I didn't even really react. Late-night motels are full of dumb little mistakes. Tired people trying the wrong door, key cards not working, someone misreading a room number and knocking at the wrong place. For a second, I figured it was a drunk traveler, or maybe some delivery or staff hitting the wrong door. I adjusted my blanket, shifted my pillow, and pretty much decided to ignore it. The knock was so soft it didn't feel like any kind of threat. Motels are super quiet at that hour, so even small sounds carry. But this knock wasn't unnaturally loud, just a faint reminder of someone outside. Something that could have easily been an accident. I chose not to respond. I didn't see any reason to get up and check. Nobody spoke, nobody knocked again, so I assumed whoever it was had already moved on to the next door. I pulled the blanket back up and tried to slip fully into sleep. My mind made a little mental note. Weird, but harmless. It did not feel, in that moment, like this was the first disturbance or that a pattern had just started. Around 2 a.m., I drifted out of sleep again, without any clear reason. The room was completely quiet, aside from the low hum of the heater and the muted pressure of the snowfall outside. There was nothing loud or obvious. Then, at that exact moment, the same soft knock at the door. Same volume, same rhythm, just one tap. The kind of moment that should still register as coincidence, but this time, it didn't feel like that. The 1 a.m. knock was easy to brush off, but this second one, same timing, same gentle tone, started to feel like a pattern. After the knock, there was total silence. No footsteps, no shifting, no door handle being tested. Just a long stillness, the kind where you know somebody is waiting for a response, but they're not making any extra noise themselves. I stayed in bed, completely still. I didn't go to the door. I just switched into listening mode. Under the heater's constant hum, I didn't hear anything new in the hallway. No carpet sounds, no retreating steps, nothing. At 3 a.m., like someone had set a timer, there was another single knock. Same volume, same controlled pressure, same one-tap sound. It felt like someone was counting the minutes and then knocking right on schedule. Not early, not late. At 4 a.m., the pattern continued, and one detail really started to bother me. Whoever it was, they weren't impatient. There was never a second knock. No force, no banging. If they wanted to be aggressive, they easily could have been, but they weren't. The only clear message that knock carried was this. They knew I could hear them, and they were just waiting. Not curious, not confused, not angry, just patient. Like the whole point of the knocking was to stay on schedule, and whether I answered or not didn't matter to them at all. After the 4 a.m. knock, I finally decided I should check the peephole. But just deciding that and actually getting up took a minute. I wanted my movements to stay slow and deliberate, nothing sudden or panicked. I got out of bed at an easy pace. The carpet was soft and barely made a sound under my feet. The heater's noise wrapped the room in a kind of cushion, but underneath that, the hallway's silence felt heavier, like it had its own weight. When I reached the peephole, I held my breath for a second without even thinking about it, then slowly lined my eye up with it. The hallway was empty. The reflection from the bathroom light showed the carpet's pattern clearly, undisturbed. No shift, no signs of someone walking there recently. The ceiling lights were steady, no flicker, no passing shadow. But from the lower angle of the peephole, I could see a small patch of snow right in front of the door. And there was a perfect pair of fresh muddy footprints, standing straight, facing the door. The outlines were sharp, edges crisp, which meant they'd been made recently. No drag marks, no heel turn, no direction, just the exact stance of someone standing still. And the most unsettling part was that the footprints didn't lead up to the door. There was no trail, no approach path in the snow. Just that one pair, exactly centered in front of the door. And they stopped there, like someone had just been standing in one spot, waiting. I didn't freak out, didn't scream or jump, but my whole body went still. Not locked, just not moving. Like my system quietly hit pause. In that moment, one thing was completely clear. Someone had been right outside my door, and they'd probably been standing there for a long time. After seeing those footprints through the peephole, I didn't react impulsively. I didn't flip on all the lights, didn't rush to speak, didn't yell, "Who's there?" I just sat back down on the edge of the bed and decided to wait for dawn. Keeping the room dark felt like the better option. I didn't pull the curtains, didn't turn on the lamp, didn't do anything that would highlight my movement from outside. The heater's slow hum felt like cover noise, and I focused on keeping my breathing steady inside it. When the light outside finally shifted to that bluish pre-sunrise shade, when objects started to show up as faint outlines, I picked up my backpack. I packed everything quietly. I even moved the zipper extra slowly, so there wouldn't be a sharp sound carrying into the hallway. Phone on silent, wall in the inner pocket, shoes already laced so I wouldn't have to kneel down and make more noise. At the door, I paused for a second before unlocking it, then turned the handle slowly. Cold air hit my face instantly, that crisp winter blast that tightens your skin in one shot. The hallway was empty, light steady, carpet untouched. Only one thing was different. The footprints I'd seen through the peephole now looked slightly deeper. The edges had sunken a little more, like whatever weight had been standing there hadn't been gone for very long. I walked straight to the parking lot. No rushing, no running. My pace was calm, but intentional. The crunch of snow under my shoes sounded normal now, unlike the unnatural silence from the night. The car unlock beep was soft. I got inside, shut the door, and turned the ignition without checking the rearview mirror. Just steady, completely steady. Then I pulled out and left, quietly, without looking back. At the checkout desk, the clerk was half asleep, forehead resting on his hand, coffee cup half finished, the yellow lobby light giving his face a dull glow. I put the keys on the counter and said in a totally casual tone, "Room 12, right?" He lifted his head and stared at me for a second, like it took him a moment to process the question. Then, in a completely neutral voice, he said one simple line. "That room hasn't been rented in 3 weeks." No explanation, no surprise, no follow-up question. Just matter of fact, like that info was completely normal and not weird at all. I paused for a second, not frozen, just stuck in that mental space where your brain tries to force logic onto something. Maybe the system wasn't updated. Maybe he was looking at the wrong sheet. Maybe he was just too tired and mixing things up. I made a conscious choice not to dig into it. I just said a soft "all right" and walked out. When I stepped back into the parking lot, the snow was falling heavier, building that thick, quiet layer over everything. Sitting in the car, the heater's warm air hit my face, and that's when it really hit me. The silence at the motel and the silence on the highway are two totally different things. One feels artificial, boxed in. The other feels open. The drive back was surprisingly steady. No strange cars, no weird shadows, just the soft brightness of snow and an empty morning highway. But my mind didn't fully let go of the motel. Now, sometimes at night, when my house is completely quiet, no appliance hum, no passing cars, I can almost hear that same single knock in my head. Same volume, same timing, same patient pause afterward. Just once. That's it. And then silence, the same kind that filled that motel hallway. It was an early winter night, that time when the emptiness on the interstate feels even more noticeable. The I-80 stretch through Nebraska has its own kind of silence. Miles of straight road, flat open fields where even shadows feel like they get swallowed by the space, and the horizon looks like one single dark line. I was driving back from a family gathering, planning an overnight drive, so I could be home by morning. Inside the cabin, the heater on low was putting out steady warmth. The edges of the windshield were slightly fogged, but the center was clear enough. Cruise control was set at 72, and the steady vibration of the engine felt like a kind of rhythmic comfort. Every now and then a semi-truck would pass, and that quick whoosh would push a light-pressure wave through the cabin. Familiar, routine. Music was playing on low volume. A coffee cup sat balanced on the passenger seat, and the whole stretch of road felt predictable and uneventful. Nothing unusual. Just a typical, calm Midwest highway night. I wasn't on this drive, trying to escape anything emotionally. I didn't need space. There wasn't some heavy argument fresh in my head. No mental breakdown behind the wheel. I had one simple, straightforward reason. I needed to be home by Monday morning. The family gathering had been long but normal, and the return trip felt predictable. One of those drives where your mind is half on, half off, like your body's just running on cruise control too. My brain was definitely tired, but in a stable way, the kind of fatigue where you don't snap at anything, you just slow down. Overnight highway driving wasn't new to me. I'd already done plenty of Midwest stretches at night. The lane markers create that hypnotic pattern, and your thoughts just kind of glide into neutral. Near cities, you get random distractions, billboards, light traffic, brake lights glowing everywhere. But out here, on that Nebraska stretch, it's basically blank. Dark fields, open air, and that long stillness where even your heartbeat starts to feel predictable. The highway silence didn't make me uncomfortable. If anything, it was calming, like the environment wasn't forcing me to think about anything. No loud truck horns, no construction zones, no surprise brake lights. I settled into cruise control and slipped into that just rack up the miles mindset. No rush, no pressure, no urgency, just a steady pace and that natural, night driving rhythm you fall into on long, empty stretches. Everything felt normal, almost too normal, at least up to that point. Around the 2-hour mark, when I was completely settled into the long, flat stretch, my eyes did a casual check of the rear view mirror. That's when I noticed an old dark sedan behind me. Same lane, same clean distance, headlights a normal warm yellow. No weaving, no sudden lane shifts, no aggressive tailgating. Just a steady follow, like we were in some quiet, unspoken 2-car convoy. At first, I took it as totally normal traffic. On long highways, people fall into the same pace for miles. Sometimes you're the one passing, sometimes someone else just ends up matching your speed. Nothing about that is automatically a red flag. Then, out of curiosity, I dropped my speed a little to 70, and the sedan kept the exact same gap. Didn't move closer, didn't fall back. Almost like it mirrored the change. I nudged it up to 75. Same thing. It adjusted perfectly again, like we were synced on cruise control. Right then I made myself back off the overthinking. On night drives, your brain loves to latch onto small patterns that are actually harmless. I told myself, probably just coincidence. Maybe it's some long-haul driver who just finds this speed comfortable. A lot of people stay at the same speed for hours, keeping a safe distance. The sedan was behaving completely predictably, so it was easy to ignore. In the mirror, it looked like any other normal car. Nothing unusual, nothing alarming. At that point, It was just one small detail, something I could easily file under routine night traffic and move on from without any stress. By hour 4, the pattern was still weirdly consistent. Normally, on long drives, the lineup of cars around you keeps changing. Someone exits, someone passes, someone slows down. But this sedan, it was locked into a static behavior. Every time I passed a truck, the sedan's timing for its lane change matched mine almost exactly. Not even half a second off. No hesitation, no wobble, like it already knew the exact moment I was going to move into the other lane. Exit signs slid by in a blur. North Platte, Ogallala, with huge stretches of nothing in between. On this part of I-80, there are long gaps where you don't see anyone at all. Sometimes a random car shows up, then disappears at the next exit. But the sedan's position? Same. Always the same. It felt like there was an invisible tether from my rear bumper back to its front grille, a perfect elastic distance that nothing seemed to break. It never crept closer, never dropped back. Sure, someone could intentionally keep that kind of pace if they wanted to, but doing it for that long, without a single mistake, started feeling unnatural. Logically, if the driver wanted to pass, they totally could have. The highway was open, visibility was perfect, and the left lane ahead was completely clear. No trucks blocking, no construction zones, no obvious speed traps. Still, the sedan never went around me. It just stayed there, same measured distance, same aligned speed, same quiet presence in the center of my rearview mirror. At this point, the "it's just coincidence" explanation was getting weak. I didn't feel an outright threat yet, but the behavior definitely stopped matching normal traffic. It felt more like being watched by someone who didn't need to get closer or farther. Around hour 6, the low fuel warning light came on. That familiar amber glow on the gauge told me the next services sign, the one that said 18 miles, was my best bet. I stuck to the plan. Simple, predictable stop. When I turned off cruise control and started easing my speed down, the sedan made the exact same adjustment. No sway, no lag, nothing sloppy. It moved like it was wired into my gas pedal. As the service lane came into view, the right shoulder curved into that soft exit angle. I started shifting right gradually, a very normal, smooth move. The sedan eased back a bit, then slowed on the main highway right along the shoulder line, almost hovering on the edge. Not pulling in, not driving past, just holding. The gas station ahead was lit up with harsh white LED lights. The air was thin and cold, and the wind made this clean hissing sound that echoed slightly in the mostly empty lot. The parking area was almost completely dead, just an old pickup parked on the far side. I turned into pump 3. The sedan didn't come into the station at all. It stopped out on the shoulder, and then its headlights clicked off. No door opening, no shape shifting inside, no interior light flashing on, just complete stillness. Like whoever was inside wanted to stay unseen. I went through the fueling routine on autopilot. Swiped the card, put the nozzle in, watched the numbers climb. The cold air stiffened my hands, but my mind was strangely blank, not panicking, just taking everything in. When I got back into the car, I adjusted the coffee lid, clicked the seatbelt into place slowly, and merged back onto the highway without hesitating. For a few seconds, the mirror showed nothing but dark road. Then the sedan's headlights came back on, like someone finishing a long blink, and it slid right back into my lane, same exact gap, like the gas stop had just been a short intermission, not a break in the pattern. As I got closer to the city limits, I shifted into this weird, sharp kind of clarity. After the way that sedan had behaved on the highway, any sudden turn or panic move felt like it would just create more risk. So I kept my driving deliberately predictable. Signals on early, lane changes slow and smooth, speed right at the limit. Nothing that would look like a scared reaction. In the back of my mind, the thought kept nagging me. If that car was intentionally following me, doing something abrupt might act like a signal. When I took the off-ramp, I made a point of not going straight onto my usual route home. Instead, I took a wider loop, the kind where the layout of the streets naturally breaks up what you can see in your rear view. It was a quiet little test. If the sedan was really following, it would have to reappear at some angle. If not, it would either vanish or hang way back. For a moment, the sedan disappeared from the mirror. No headlights, no silhouette, nothing behind me. Inside the city, the warm amber streetlights painted soft patches on the road, and that glow felt weirdly peaceful compared to the hard darkness of the highway. Near my neighborhood, I still didn't head straight to the house. I took an extra block loop at a slow, normal pace. It's the kind of loop where anyone tailing you would stick out, either in the mirror or by the sound of their engine echoing through the side streets. On the final turn, nothing. No sedan, no engine hum from behind, no faint headlights bleeding in from a cross street. I parked quietly along the curb, turned the car off, and just sat there for 20 or 30 seconds listening. All I heard was the low, distant hum of winter air, like the whole neighborhood was in sleep mode. Then I flipped on the porch light, turned the key, went inside, locked the door, set the deadbolt, checked the windows, all automatic, like my body still wanted that extra layer of control. In that moment, there was no visible chase, no obvious threat, just a heavy kind of quiet that felt like it had followed me off the highway and into my house. In the morning, when I picked up my phone from the charger, the route tracker app had auto-opened to the trip timeline, that neat little summary with hour-by-hour timestamps. The trip data looked perfectly clean: highway segments, gas stop time, city entry, home arrival. Nothing flagged as unusual. I was scrolling through it when a motion alert popped up. 4:32 a.m. That's the time when the neighborhood is usually completely dead. I tapped it open, and the corner camera clip loaded. In the video, a dark sedan was rolling slowly across the end of my block. The headlights were dim, like they'd been intentionally kept on low beam. The shape of the car looked familiar. Same old body style, same front end dip, same slight lean to the left. The speed was perfectly controlled, like the driver knew it was a residential area and didn't want to draw any attention. The car slid through the frame for a few seconds, then quietly exited. No turn signal, no flash of brake lights, just a smooth glide out of view, like it had no idea a camera was even there. There's no solid proof that it was the exact same sedan from the highway. No concrete sign it was specifically about me. But the pattern felt uncomfortably familiar. Same kind of distance, same kind of movement, timing that was way too on the nose. Now, when the street outside is especially quiet at night, and the fridge compressor kicks on with a soft click, in that tiny gap of silence my mind flashes back to that dim glow in the rearview mirror. That fixed distance, that silent follow, that 7-hour shadow just pacing behind me on the interstate. And yeah, sometimes I think maybe I really should have taken an earlier exit. Or maybe that car was never really finished following me in the first place. In the morning, when I picked up my phone from the charger, the route tracker app had auto-opened to the trip timeline, that neat little summary with hour-by-hour timestamps. The trip data looked perfectly clean: highway segments, gas stop time, city entry, home arrival. Nothing flagged as unusual. I was scrolling through it when a motion alert popped up. 4:32 a.m. That's the time when the neighborhood is usually completely dead. I tapped it open, and the corner camera clip loaded. In the video, a dark sedan was rolling slowly across the end of my block. The headlights were dim, like they'd been intentionally kept on low beam. The shape of the car looked familiar. Same old body style, same front end dip, same slight lean to the left. The speed was perfectly controlled, like the driver knew it was a residential area and didn't want to draw any attention. The car slid through the frame for a few seconds, then quietly exited. No turn signal, no flash of brake lights, just a smooth glide out of view, like it had no idea a camera was even there. There's no solid proof that it was the exact same sedan from the highway. No concrete sign it was specifically about me. But the pattern felt uncomfortably familiar. Same kind of distance, same kind of movement, timing that was way too on the nose. Now, when the street outside is especially quiet at night, and the fridge compressor kicks on with a soft click, in that tiny gap of silence my mind flashes back to that dim glow in the rearview mirror. That fixed distance, that silent follow, that 7-hour shadow just pacing behind me on the interstate. And yeah, sometimes I think maybe I really should have taken an earlier exit. Or maybe That car was never really finished following me in the first place. This trip honestly didn't have any emotional backstory. No frustration, no personal crisis, no overloaded headspace I was trying to escape. The drive had just gone on longer than it needed to. The kind of road fatigue where your mind slows down, but your emotions are completely neutral. Your grip on the steering wheel loosens a little, your thoughts don't spiral, they just fade into the background. I just needed a cheap room, so I could head out fresh the next morning. The kind of room you don't expect anything from, where you don't make any memories, just a functional stopover. I was tired for sure, but not stressed. It was that perfect, nothing going on state where you're not excited, not bored, just on autopilot. At the end of a trip, every traveler carries this certain kind of silence with them, a mental blankness that shows up all by itself after enough miles. That's what I was feeling too. No noise in my head, no thought pressing on me. Just that mellow quiet where you see a sofa or a bed and your body automatically starts to unwind. Hotel nights are usually boring and predictable. Slightly stale air, dim lamps, and the same routine sounds. The hum of the vending machine, a faint tick from the pipes, the occasional echo of footsteps in the hallway. That's exactly the environment I was expecting. No surprises, no weird vibe, no something's wrong, intuition. Just a cheap room, a quick night, and the next morning's drive. That's it. Even in the motel's quiet atmosphere, there wasn't any unusual heaviness. If anything, there was just ordinary silence, and that fit this trip perfectly. This trip honestly didn't have any emotional backstory. No frustration, no personal crisis, no overloaded headspace I was trying to escape. The drive had just gone on longer than it needed to. The kind of road fatigue where your mind slows down, but your emotions are completely neutral. Your grip on the steering wheel loosens a little, your thoughts don't spiral, they just fade into the background. I just needed a cheap room, so I could head out fresh the next morning. The kind of room you don't expect anything from, where you don't make any memories, just a functional stopover. I was tired for sure, but not stressed. It was that perfect, nothing going on state where you're not excited, not bored, just on autopilot. At the end of a trip, every traveler carries this certain kind of silence with them, a mental blankness that shows up all by itself after enough miles. That's what I was feeling too. No noise in my head, no thought pressing on me. Just that mellow quiet where you see a sofa or a bed and your body automatically starts to unwind. Hotel nights are usually boring and predictable. Slightly stale air, dim lamps, and the same routine sounds. The hum of the vending machine, a faint tick from the pipes, the occasional echo of footsteps in the hallway. That's exactly the environment I was expecting. No surprises, no weird vibe, no something's wrong, intuition. Just a cheap room, a quick night, and the next morning's drive. That's it. Even in the motel's quiet atmosphere, there wasn't any unusual heaviness. If anything, there was just ordinary silence, and that fit this trip perfectly. Later that night, I felt a little dehydrated, so I stepped into the hallway to grab a drink from the vending machine. The hallway was unusually quiet. The carpet soaked up almost all the sound, and the warm light around the vending area looked like this small, isolated glow at the end. After I grabbed a soda and started walking back to my room, there was a partial view of the lobby from one angle. And there, the receptionist was standing in the exact same posture as before. Same stance, same stillness, same straight spine, like someone had frozen the frame. He wasn't looking directly at me, but his focus seemed locked on a single point, the glass of the main entrance door. He wasn't scanning the lobby, not writing anything, not checking a screen, just a fixed stare, like he was watching the doorway. There was no magazine open on the desk, no phone in his hand, no laptop glow, nothing that said casual human activity, just his presence, no blinking, no shifting. I decided to call it fatigue. Late-night motel shifts are draining. People zone out hard. Your brain is good at creating soft excuses as long as you don't feel a direct threat. About an hour later, I went back toward the ice machine to refill my water bottle. Coming back again, I got that same side-angle view of the lobby, and he was still there at the desk. He hadn't pushed his chair back, hadn't leaned, hadn't even shifted his weight. His body looked like it was locked in the same exact position. And there was this strange consistency in his stare, detached, locked on one single point, fixed. This time it was harder to ignore the pattern. I still kept myself calm, telling myself maybe people in this job really do drift into a long zone-out mode. But internally, that stillness was starting to stand out, more than it should have. Around 3 a.m., I heard this faint hum in the hallway. Not a clear mechanical noise, more like a low-frequency vibration that old motels sometimes get through pipes or vents. Normally, I would have ignored it, but that small disturbance pushed me to check the peephole. At that hour, the hallway is usually completely quiet. No footsteps, no doors opening, no elevator ding. I walked to the door slowly, without touching the handle, and quietly looked through the peephole. There was no one at the lobby desk. The chairs were empty. The counter was empty. The coffee machine was dark. The whole front area looked uncomfortably still, like the shift had never even happened. Then my eyes drifted toward the far left end of the hallway. And there, the receptionist was standing, dead center, completely still. His arms were straight at his sides. No sway, no little posture adjustment, none of the usual weight shifting you see when someone's been standing a long time. He was facing directly toward my door, like that same static posture he'd had in the lobby for the last couple of hours had quietly moved and locked itself into this new spot in the hallway. The weirdest part, I hadn't heard him approach. No sound of footsteps on the carpet, no muffled thump, no shuffle, no vent echo, nothing. Like he'd just appeared there, but in a totally human, non-dramatic way. Through the peephole, I could tell his line of sight was generally in my direction. Not laser-focused on the peephole, but close enough that you knew he was in a kind of waiting stillness. I pulled my eye away and just listened for a second. No breathing, no cloth moving, nothing. Just the heavy feel of that still presence, like something was hanging in the air and the space suddenly felt unnaturally empty. There wasn't loud fear in that moment, just a quiet, controlled discomfort that made my body lock up on the inside. After seeing that still figure through the peephole, I didn't flip the lights on. The idea of suddenly flooding the room with light and creating big shadows felt wrong. I didn't even start packing my bag. I just sat quietly on the edge of the bed, keeping my breathing slow in the room's slightly stale warmth. My phone was on silent, and the heater's low rumble gave me this predictable background sound, the kind of noise that anchors you when everything outside feels disturbingly still. I didn't walk back to the door to listen closely. I didn't try to track his movement. My body had already decided on its own. Staying still was the safest option. When the first faint blue of dawn started slipping in at the edges of the curtains, I finally moved. I took each step slowly on purpose. I pulled the zipper on my bag with careful pressure, so no sharp sound echoed into the hall. I put on my shoes without letting them thump against the floor. Every motion was intentional, controlled. At the door, I took one deeper breath, not like some big dramatic brace, just enough to steady myself, and then unlocked it. When I opened the door, the hallway was empty. The lights were soft, the carpet looked undisturbed. No footprints, no signs of anyone having been there. The same hallway that felt heavy all night now looked completely neutral. As I crossed the lobby, the only sounds were the soft, muffled thud of my own footsteps and the faint hum of a refrigerator from the breakfast room. The front desk chair was empty, an unsettling kind of empty, like someone had either left very early or maybe hadn't been physically there at all. I hit the counter bell. The metallic click echoed a little in the lobby. No response, no footsteps, no voice. The clipboard was on the desk, open, left there like it had just been abandoned. And in that moment, the silence felt weirder and heavier than it had in the middle of the night. The clipboard lay open on the front desk, the pages slightly curled, like no one had touched them recently. I traced the guest log column with my eyes and checked the last written date, 3 weeks ago. Everything under it was blank. No names, no check-ins, no room numbers filled in. Even the room I'd been given had an empty space next to it. No handwritten correction, no crossed-out note, nothing. A full stretch of time where nobody had officially checked in at all. The motel lights were on, the coffee machine was plugged in, the building was warm, but the occupancy sheet was completely empty, like the place was running on pure habit. The structure going through the motions, even if no one was actually staying there. I put the plastic key down on the desk, gently slid the clipboard back, and glanced toward the hallway for a second. In the bright morning light, that space looked even more still, Like whatever had been there all night either dissolved in the daylight or just slipped into some other corner. I pushed open the lobby door and the cold morning air hit my face. But that heaviness, that static, watching kind of feeling, stayed faintly lodged in the back of my mind. When I got into the car and turned the ignition, I paused for a second before checking the mirrors. Not really expecting to see anything, but still glancing out of instinct. The mirrors were empty. The street was calm. Pulling out of the lot felt completely normal. No strange cars, no shadowy figure, nothing visibly off. But anytime I picture a highway rest stop or motel hallway now, my mind automatically drags up that still figure, the straight posture, that unblinking stare, and that sense that someone stood there all night without moving, just waiting. And sometimes, in the very early morning, when the house is totally quiet and the fridge kicks on with a soft click, that same stare floats back into my memory. Same posture, same silence, like he's still standing in that lobby, at that exact same angle, not blinking,